buddies today. We're going to go over this chart. You watched a video yesterday. You were supposed to fill this chart in. And then I have some things I need to kind of add to that you might have missed or didn't seem like they were quite as obvious, and some vocab words to talk about. So you're going to want to get this chart out, and you might as well pull up the Lesson 1 PDF for social studies as well on your iPad if you can.
Wait, the chapter 7, lesson 1?
While you're getting ready and set up, you need to be holding on to chapter 5, 6, and 7 notes. Okay, all of those notes we'll use when we come back from break to review and do a Unit 3 test about the 13 colonies before we start the Revolutionary War. So if you're missing some kind of notes, whether it's from 5, 6, or 7, we're just getting started, so you shouldn't be missing any of those. But if you're missing notes from 5 or 6, you need to maybe ask a neighbor if you can copy theirs. Okay, make sure you've got them somewhere on your iPad typed in your notebook. Some of them were paper copies that I gave you or that you were able to print off. Okay, so make sure you have your notes for chapters 5, 6, and 7 in a safe place. Yep, it's all of them. So you should have, each of those chapters had 3 lessons, so you will have 9 different sets of notes when it's all said and done. Okay? All right, let's start with this chart. We'll work our way through this. Virginia was the first colony I believe Mr. Z talked about. What can you tell me about Virginia? Kind of an interesting colony here. Josh, go ahead.
The founder was John Smith.
Yep. Oh, let's see. Why isn't it typing? There we go. John Smith was our founder. Maya, what else?
It was founded for
Economic.
opportunities.
Yep. And what does that mean? Let me fix this. What's that mean? Economic opportunity. What is that? Talked about that word economy, which is economic. It just has a different ending there. Suffix, word ending, whatever you want to call it. At this point, economic opportunity. What is that, Juliana?
I think it's like free opportunities.
It's what?
I think it's like free opportunities that you can own.
Okay. What else? What kind of opportunities do people look for even today? Sean? Jobs, right? Jobs, homes. Okay. School, depending on schools, you might look for different schools that you want to attend. Okay. If your career is setting out in the ocean and finding crabs, are you going to move to Indiana to do that?
No.
No, we don't have that kind of economy. That's not what our economy is based on. So you are not coming to Indiana, are you?
No.
Okay, so the opportunities in these different colonies were different because of their location. New England had a lot of lumber, right? Middle colonies had some other things. Now we're talking about these southern colonies. And they're even going to offer other economic opportunities, different freedoms, different jobs. Okay, good. What else can you tell me about Virginia? Riker?
The Native Americans and thing, they were the Native Americans were there first, and then and then the other people came, and then they said that they were entitled to it, but
Good.
they were fighting over it, because Native Americans said that they were there first, and they had their rights, and then the other people said that they have stronger weapons, so they should be here.
Good. That was another chart he pulled up for you, right? Where we start to see a lot of conflict with Native Americans. Okay? So John Smith starts the colony called what? What's the colony that he starts called?
Virginia.
Well, it's Virginia. What's the place? There's another specific place, Maya. He starts Jamestown, right? And Jamestown continues to grow and grow and grow and starts to kind of push out those Native Americans. And what Riker was talking about is something that I also wanted to mention. And I'm going to slide over here. Okay, we do start to see a lot of conflict, okay, with the Native Americans. For those reasons that Riker was mentioning, right? So if you didn't write this down on the back of the paper or on another sheet, we're going to put a few things up here. Looking at those colonists, why they thought they should have the land, and why the Native Americans thought they should have the land. Okay? I think Riker mentioned they had a charter, right? They were more powerful. They had a charter. What is a charter? What is that, Josh?
It's like something with the king, like
Mhm.
you basically you own the land.
Yeah, the king gives that to you and says you can have that land. Yep. Wyatt, what else? Sure.
They were there first.
Yep.
And that's what I said.
Yeah, you mentioned that.
I know, but
They were there.
Good job, Ryan.
Wrong there. EIR. Nope. I had the right there. How many there's happening?
Not over
They
there.
were there.
They're
First.
there.
What else? Kenny?
They knew the area better.
Okay, they did, right? They had been there a long time, right? They knew the area. They had been there a long time.
they've been there for generations.
Right, generations.
And they just get thrown out like that.
They were there for generations. The colonists also said that the Native Americans weren't using the land. So if you're not using it, we're going to use it, right?
Yeah. But they've been living
Right,
there
they
for-
were, but not according to what the colonists thought they should be using it. Native Americans weren't using land.
If you're not using it.
Okay,
we're
so
gonna
what
use it.
starts to happen? We see conflicts. What did those colonists start to do to the Native Americans?
Oh, they tried to push them out.
They were pushing them out, right? They were burning down villages. Native Americans were dying from the diseases the colonists were bringing in. Okay, so you might add over
But
here.
what diseases?
They were dying from diseases, just any diseases that they were bringing over that they weren't immune to. They weren't able to fight off.
Like COVID?
Kind of similar to that situation, right? But probably not COVID. Dying from disease.
Wait, yeah, COVID was way back
Maybe the-
then.
maybe the plague?
Burning villages.
No, the plague was in.
Writing, Josh. Okay, so those are some things that were happening, starting to cause conflict. What else were the colonists doing to the Native Americans? They needed them. We're going to get to that here in a little bit.
They slaved them.
Yeah. They did that.
They did what?
They slaved them.
They enslaved them. Right, they were using them as slaves because they needed them for their big farms, which is what we're going to talk about here in a little bit. That is also part of this lesson. Jamestown, we'll put many conflicts. Maybe. There we go. Still can't get it. With Native Americans. Okay? So, there's Virginia. I think we did pretty good covering that one. Oh, there's one more thing we need to talk about. John Smith made a rule. What was his rule? Because Jamestown was one of those where they came and people were gone and not working and dying. What happened, John?
No, he made the rule, no work, no eat.
Right. No work.
No work, no eat.
No work equals no food. So you had to work or you didn't get to eat. If you didn't help with providing things, growing things, or whatever it was the colony needed, then you were going to have to leave.
I would rather not eat for one day.
Okay? So Maryland. Maryland is next. Who's our founder?
I raised my hand first.
Who is our founder? Claire? Yeah, they call them Baltimore.
That tells a lot.
Okay, gentlemen. So we go from the first Lord Baltimore, which is Sir George. Their last name is Calvert, right?
And then
And then he eventually dies. He also makes some people angry because he decides that he's going to follow one religion, right? Okay, and provides freedoms for that group of people. Okay, he dies, and then his son takes over, and they also call him Lord Baltimore. And he's also obviously a Calvert because it's his son, but it's Cecil Calvert. Okay, so those two work and kind of create or build upon, his son builds upon what his father had already started. Okay,
is that how Baltimore became a thing?
possibly.
Like what? Baltimore?
That's how Baltimore became a city, right?
Baltimore in Maryland?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh.
Probably Baltimore's otherwhere, but different places. But yeah, there's one in Maryland. Why did they start this particular colony? Adam? Right, so Lord Baltimore decides that he's Catholic and he's going to provide religious freedom to Catholics. So that's why he starts this colony. Provide. My goodness. There we go. To
Wait, is this part of both Wythander and Uppercuts?
no.
No. It's just longer. It's just
To make it fit in the box.
yeah.
Okay. There was something else about Maryland and Lord Baltimore's that we need to talk about. What did they call this movement, this religious freedom to those Catholics? They called it something. What was it, June? The what? I can't hear you. Not the Great Awakening. That was from the previous chapter. This is something different. He mentions it. He even pulls it up on the video. The ideas. Toleration Act. Remember those words? Toleration Act. So this particular act gave those Catholics, Christians, the freedoms. Okay, that's what he decided he was going to do. So he creates this law, you might call it, to provide those freedoms to those people of that particular religion. Okay? So this is an important word to write down. You might put a little arrow so you know this was part of that. Okay, that was his law. That's what he called it. Okay. Our wrap text. Anything else about Maryland? I think we're pretty good there on Maryland, Kenny.
I'm gonna say had their McDonald's.
They did. Mm-hmm.
Freedom and natural resources.
Freedom and natural resources. Okay. Gets us to the Carolinas. Something interesting you might not have known about those Carolinas is what? John?
The founders of the Carolinas are a group of 8 nobles.
Right, they're called the Lord Proprietors. And you're going to want to write that word down. But yes, it was a group of 8 nobles, 8 people, 8 men that created or founded this colony. Okay. What else? Can you tell me, Riker?
They were it was founded for economic opportunity.
Yep, economic opportunities. We see that quite a bit. Okay. What else was interesting about it, Kenny?
Started as one colony, didn't separate to 1729.
Yeah, it started as one colony,
And then became two.
but separated in 1729. You could say into 2 colonies, right? Which is how we get the South
And then North.
and the North Carolina. Why did they do that? Oops, why did they separate it into the two colonies? What was their reasoning behind that? There was a reason. Maya?
Their people that were living there, they had the two places were very different.
Right.
So they couldn't stay together, so they just.
Yeah, they were very distinct in what they were doing, right? Their economies relied on different things. So if you were in northern portion of Carolina, okay, you were farming tobacco. But the land in the southern portion of that same colony couldn't do that. So they had large plantations. And we read more about their cash crops, okay, in the next lessons. But that was part of the reason for them to split it. Okay, it was two very different areas. So they decided to make it two different colonies. Okay. Gonna see. All right. Good on the Carolinas?
Yeah.
All right, how about Georgia? Tell me about Georgia. Lots of hands about Georgia. Josh, what do you got?
The founder is James Oglethorpe.
Yeah, James. Oh, I'm gonna spell this wrong. Oglethorpe. There we go.
I also know something for why founder.
Sure, go ahead.
Economic opportunities for debtors, a
Mhm.
defense buffer.
Yeah.
Yep, so it gave those, they were the indentured servants, right? So those indentured servants were working off debt. Okay, a debtor is somebody who owes money. So they owed money to England. So James Oglethorpe realized that those people were paying their debt, but then after they paid off their debt, what would happen?
They would go to jail.
They went to jail because at some point they weren't making money to continue paying off that debt. So they were struggling, right? And he didn't think that was fair. We're sending these people to jail because they don't have the opportunities that they need, right? So he starts this colony to give those debtors
And one more chance.
the opportunity
Wait, so like,
to pay off their debts to England.
what's he mean?
About, what are you looking at?
Like for that?
Yes.
'Cause, you know,
So,
said they have to pay off their debts to England. I thought they had to pay off their debts by work.
they do. They have to pay off their debt by working. But if you're working and just giving all of your money to England, are you able to survive?
No, because
No,
you
so
don't,
they had to keep some of the money. Well, then England would get upset that you weren't paying off your debt fast enough.
Yeah.
Okay, what was the debt from? If you're an indentured servant, what is your debt from? Riker?
The debt is from if you, say if you like go to jail, if they take you to jail, then you aren't getting money, so you can pay the debt. So then they make something new that, if you go to jail, you might, get some more money.
And it might have been that, but initially, how does an indentured servant owe England? What did England do for them? Sean?
like why they owed England?
Yeah, why?
Maybe they did something bad.
No, they didn't do anything bad. Not yet, not until they stop paying their debt to England and the king gets upset about that. He likes to have his money, right? Nick?
He liked this
like-
around.
Like they paid for like a trip for them. Or
Exactly. England pays for these people, okay, these colonists to come over to the Americas, and then they are required to pay their debt back to England. England paid for that. It's expensive, so they want their money back after you get over there. Okay, so that's what an indentured servant is. There's somebody who eventually is going to be free after they pay off that debt, but they are having a hard time surviving and paying the debt. Okay,
Wait,
so
did they
James comes in and tries to help them with paying their debt and giving them opportunities to live and grow and be successful.
Do they not feed them while they're paying off their debt?
Well, that would be part of the problem, right? You have to
Yeah.
have resources to feed yourself and resources to pay them back. So which one are you probably going to do?
Feed yourself.
You're going to try and feed yourself. You want to survive, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and then you'll get that debt paid to them, and they didn't like that if you weren't paying it fast enough. Okay?
Yeah.
What else can you tell me about Georgia? John?
For my other facts, it's basically talking about
Yeah, and that's what James was trying to avoid. Yep.
So they can pay off the debt.
Right. And survive, right? They could do both, right?
That's wrong.
Josh had also mentioned the fact that Georgia was a buffer. What does that mean? Eli, Adam, I need your eyes up here. I need you watching, following along, please. What is that? He's right, and it is important. We need to write that down.
I have a
Kenny, what can you tell me about it?
It's like a defense zone where you go if you've been attacked.
Who are they afraid was going to attack them?
Native Americans.
Not the Native Americans. Sean?
The Spanish because they bordered Spanish Florida.
Right. So below Georgia is Florida. Spain owned that. That was Spanish Florida. So they owned that. And Georgia was that spot in between. So in order for any of those in Spain to get to some of their more developed colonies,
They would have to drive through there.
they had to get through Georgia first.
Yeah.
Okay? They weren't driving, but they were getting there somehow, right? Was buffer between
They had an army there.
Spanish Florida and northern,
Oh,
Colonies.
Also,
you might say northern England colonies. So England didn't want Spain to kind of surprise attack, and they had that colony in between. Josh?
So it would be kind of hard if you're in jail to get money to pay off.
It would.
So then technically you would just be in there for the rest of your life.
Technically, yep. So James was trying to help those people, so that wouldn't happen. Okay? All right. Couple of other things we need to talk about. We talked about the Native American conflict, so that was good. Riker brought that one up. You guys did pretty good finding some of the stuff we needed. One thing, and it was a vocab word, it wasn't mentioned in the video, is the vocab word back country that I want to touch on. So, yeah, back country. And it would have been in lesson 1. You should have that open, the PDF open. Lesson 1 on page 257 underneath heading West. So you can find the word backcountry. And I'm going to scroll up here and type it down here so we can see it. Backcountry. I want you to look up in your notes. Could you write down for this word backcountry right here? What did you write down, Sean?
It was beyond or in back of the settled area.
Okay, it was beyond, back behind the settled area. Okay. So when we say settled area, what do we mean by that? John, what does that mean?
Like a place, like a settled area, like maybe like where you're staying and where you're at, because you're like settling there and you're gonna be staying. So
Right, you're probably building something, right? You probably have a home or something built there. You have maybe fencing for your various animals, so you've kind of cleared that land to make space for you to survive there, okay? So this back country area is beyond that. Okay, it might be very wooded. What else might be back there? What else did they say was back there? If we don't have this in our notes, I'd be writing it down. Vocab words needed to get done. Maya?
Thick forests and steep hills.
One more time.
Thick forests and steep hills.
Forest, steep hills, yep. Okay, so it was an area between the coastal plains and the Appalachian Mountains. And they referred to it as, John? The Piedmont. Is that what you're at? Yep. So I'm going to add a little more here. It's between coastal plains. Where are the coastal plains? We'll have to look at our map. And Appalachian Mountains. I'm going to abbreviate mountains. And they called it the Piedmont. And I will make this bigger so you can see it. And I would add this into my notes. If you have not done vocab, you are going to want to start and get those vocab words done. They become important for this chapter. Okay, so pause it if you need to finish writing that down. I'm going to slide over here. And we're going to look at the coastal plains and see what area they're talking about. Big map, yep. Big map time. So, I'm gonna get it angled right so we can see it here. So where are those coastal plains? Think of the word coastal and plains. Where are they at, Jackson? We're not over here. We're over in this area. But yeah, this would be the coast, right? But we're on this side. So it would be over here, right? Okay, this edge here along the ocean, the Atlantic Ocean, is your coastal plains. It stretches all the way down into Florida, and you get a little bit of along Texas and that. But it's that thin strip of land, okay? So we have this area. And then we have those Appalachian Mountains in here. So it's that land tucked in between those areas.
Where's Milwaukee?
Okay. Here's your Appalachian Mountains, kind of coming up through here. They're red on my map. You probably can't really see them in the video, but they're red along here. And then your coastal plains. Okay. So this area in between here is what they were talking about. All right. Riker, question?
Is the coastal plains across the like east and west coast?
Not the east and west, just mainly on the east coast. The west coast is a little different. Okay.
Wait, I forgot. It was like, what was the place that was in Nevada? It was in like the early lessons, like lesson 1 or 2 or.
The Great Basin? Is that what you're thinking of? The Great Basin? Okay. All right. Questions on that video or any of those colonies? If you need to go back and write something down, you can watch the video, get it to where you need to, pause it, and finish writing these things down. Don't forget backcountry and other vocab words. And with that, I'm going to show you. Yep. Where is? Just a minute. Schoology, Chapter 7. You have a worksheet 7-1. And there are, what, 11 questions. You can use your notes. You can use the PDF. For lesson 1, most of this should be able to come from your notes. Okay, there may be something here or there that you might need to check the lesson 1 PDF for. Okay, but most of this I believe we talked about or you saw in the video. Okay, that's what you're working on for social studies.